Well, hey everybody. I'm just getting started, so I thought I would just sit here for a minute and wait for a couple of you to jump on. Usually takes a minute or two. I hope everybody's enjoying their summer so far. It is hot here. I worked out in the yard this morning and till it was just too hot to do anymore. But I'm enjoying being able to get outside and go swimming and do the things I love to do in the summer. But I love the changing seasons, so I'll be glad when it's fall also. Anyway, I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I'm Wanda Parker, and this is Uncaged. My friend Vanessa Johnson said that my new name is Wanda, I'm here all day, Parker. So I like that name. So I am here all day. I wanted to start out before I get into my testimony. I wanted to talk a little bit about Dr. Michael Brown, who was back in the pulpit this past weekend. I listened to the message this morning, so I didn't pay like real close attention, but a couple of things stood out to me. One of the things is that he again talked about what a hellish season he's just been through, how awful it's been for him, just the attack he's been under over the last few months. Of course, no mention of the hell that other people have gone through over the last several years from things that he's done. No mention of victims, nothing like that, just how terrible it's been for him these last few months. And at one point, he mentioned that his wife said that he should, get out of ministry. And I kind of thought that may be one of the first times that Nancy Brown and I have agreed on anything ever. So that was some good advice coming from her. I thought it was funny because my mom texted me while she was watching and she said, he's a doctor, all right. He's a spin doctor. So maybe his new name should be Spin Dr. Michael Brown because he knows how to spin those stories. He talked a lot about India and, there are some things about India and that I can't talk about yet. And he talked about, when he, as my mom said, demonstrated his Hebrew skills again. And he likes to do that during messages. Anyway, none of it impresses me. I'll say this. What would impress me is if he had gotten up there and said, I know that my board has said that I am free to be back in full-time ministry, free to, mosquito, free to preach and minister, completely free to do whatever he wants to do ministry-wise now. What would have been good is for him to say, even though my board has said that, I'm not going to do it. There are things I still haven't been truthful about, and I'm ready to confess and step down from ministry and lead a quiet life. That would, I don't know if it would impress me, but it would definitely satisfy me and many others and would show a level of repentance that we have yet to see. So that's what I have to say about Dr. Michael Brown. If you're just now joining me and you missed it, you can rewind and go back and listen to it. So I don't want to waste too much time talking about that. We know that he has confessed to what he's probably going to confess to, and he's going to keep going. I hope and pray that changes. So anyway, I want to get into part 3 of my testimony and try to finish up because guess what? My mom, Fonda, who is very um, anxious when it comes to being on video at all. She doesn't even like FaceTiming. Yet she has agreed to come on and share her testimony. So if you're on here and you listen to this, encourage her because it is going to be good and it'll fill in some of the blanks that I'm sure I forget because our testimonies are intertwined, of course. So, anyway, I left off where my parents had gotten saved and come out of the drug culture of the late 60s, early 70s. I talked about the the monster that my stepfather would turn into whenever he drank, and how even after they got saved, I called it the best of times and the worst of times, if you want to go back and watch that one. And it was the best of times and the worst of times. I can tell you this, life was so much better when my parents met Jesus, 100%. It's just, there were still things. And I said before, I don't know that my stepfather was ever fully, just the word I can think of is regenerated in his spirit, because he could still be violent. He was still scary to me. I loved him and he was still scary. So I'm sure many of you that have been in abusive situations understand what I'm saying when I say that. So time went on and we just did some marvelous things. We were really involved in a wonderful little church. God was moving. It was the Jesus People movement. We saw miracles upon miracles. We had the most amazing worship services. We just had just some of the best times of my life. And when I was 8 years old, my mom became pregnant with my brother, and he was born. And I was so excited to have a baby brother. At that time, my parents were still with the Lord, but my stepfather had already started to do a few things that just were not good. I don't know what all, but just some really odd things. And one of those, I can tell you, one time I was like, I want to say this is part of grooming. And I think that this is okay to tell because this isn't going to, there are things I won't tell because I don't want to get anybody any ideas on how to groom someone. But one of the things that he said to me during this time that was so shocking, and understanding that, pretty much up until this point, we had had wonderful talks about the Lord. And there was the time that he sat on the edge of my bed and prayed the sinner's prayer with me when I came to Jesus. And during, this is the season that I learned John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes on him should not perish, but will have everlasting life. That's still true today. And I'm so thankful for this time period of my life because it really built a foundation and a love for Jesus, a simple love for Jesus Christ in my life. And I'm so grateful for it. So as time went on, let me tell you the story. So we were driving down the road somewhere, and I was 8 or 9 years old, and I can remember we were in Pecos, Texas. I can remember what street we were on. It was just that, some things are just that impactful. And he was talking to me about weird things that I did not understand as an 8 or 9 year old. But one of those things was that he told me that he had met this guy that was the undertaker at the funeral home. And he explained to me what that was and how this was the person who prepared bodies. And he told me what this guy liked to do if a young girl was ever brought into the funeral home that had passed away, and went into this weird detail about it. And I remember being so stunned that, what do you say to something? I mean, I had no idea what to say to something like that, except I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't know what that meant. It was weird. So he would tell me stories like that. One time he went into this really in-depth explanation of what a serial killer was. And, this is during the time that like Ted Bundy and people like that were just getting to be known. But my stepdad would tell me these stories about these serial killers. And it was so weird and confusing for me. And it was always, he never told these stories in front of my mom, and I never told the stories to anybody else. All it did to me is make me scared at night, to be honest. And so there were just obvious things like that. But as time went on, he started drinking again. I can remember a situation where it was my parents' anniversary, and he was supposed to come home after work and take my mom out to eat, and a babysitter was at our house waiting for him to come home so that my mom and him could leave. And he never showed up. He just didn't show up. And it got to be later and later and later. And he finally came home at some point at, in the wee hours of the morning, and an explosive argument happened. Of course, my mom was so upset and so shocked that he had gone out drinking. Excuse me. I mean, this is something behavior that had stopped years ago. And so those are the kind of things that just kicked off the next few years that were a living, horrible nightmare. So during this time, I started getting curious about my biological father. And at about 11, 12 years old, I went to visit my grandmother, and she knew that some of his brothers lived in the town that we were in. We started searching for him and found him with the permission of my mom. And so back then, like, it was long distance to call somebody. So that was money. And all I had was an address. So I wrote to my biological father, who then wrote me back. And so that started a semi-relationship with my biological father. Well, during this time, we were moving into a house, a mobile home. And okay, I'm back. Are you guys there? If somebody could comment so I know that you're here. It just froze. I don't know what happened. So anyway, so I started hearing from my biological father somewhat. We moved into that house, and my stepfather was working as I don't, if my mom is on here, she can help me. I think it's called a pumper. Like, he worked for an oil company on pump jacks, like just out in the desert of West Texas. And he worked with my uncle, who was my mother's brother-in-law. And sometimes my cousins would go out there to work with my uncle, and they were boys. And on this one occasion, my stepfather invited me to come to work with him. And I was 12 years old, and I was excited about it because, I mean, I had a baby brother, and he got a lot of attention, and I just thought it was cool that I was asked to go to work with him. By the way, before this happened, there was a time when my mom had gone to the grocery store. My brother, it was time for bed. My brother got in the bed with my stepdad because he was scared or something. And so then I was scared. Then he told me to come in there. And when my brother fell asleep, my stepdad tried to do some things to me. And I froze. And my mom was at the grocery store. When my mom got home, I told her, I ran downstairs, told my mom what had happened. And my stepdad said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe that happened. I was asleep. I was asleep. I didn't know that was happening." So that was my first off experience. But I could, believe that he was asleep or whatever. So then that fast forward, and I went to work with him this day. And on this day is the day that he did several things and essayed me. I won't go into detail because that's not needed. He did not do everything. So, but it was very traumatic and it was very horrible. And when I finally was able to speak the words, "This is wrong," out of my mouth, like, "Don't do this." He started in with anybody who's been through this. He started in with, "We shouldn't tell your mom because it will hurt her and she'll want a divorce and we'll never get to see each other again." And like just that kind of stuff. And I said, "No, I'm telling my mom. My mom has always told me to tell her if anything happened, and I'm telling." It's so scary to think about that now. When I think about the fact that he liked to tell me stories about serial killers and the other disgusting things he told me, and I was just out in the middle of nowhere with him. I'm telling you, God was watching over me that day. I mean, he was capable of so much and so much worse. And I fully believe that I had angels around me protecting me, and that the prayers of my mom, my grandma, and others really saved me that day, because here I was, a little girl standing up to this 6'3" man saying, "No, I am going to tell my mom." So what he did is he said, "Well, I'll tell your mom when we get home. I'll tell her so that you don't have to. And in the meantime, let's say a prayer about all of this." So he sat down in the sand. I'll never forget it. And he prayed and asked God to forgive us for what we had done wrong that day. I can tell you that out of everything was probably one of the single most damaging things that he said or did during any of this time, to tell me, to pray and ask God to forgive us for what we had done wrong. And you know what it kind of takes me back to? It takes me to what's going on with the Robert Morris story right now, in that he essayed a 12-year-old Cindy Clemishire from the time she was 12 until she was 17. And his wife literally called Cindy Clemishire and said that she forgave her, as if this 12 to 17-year-old girl needed to hear that. It's the same thing. It's like they have treated her as if she were a participant. Let me tell you, when you're 12 years old, you're not a participant. You're not. When it's a grown man and you are 12 years old, you are not a participant. So That's how I was treated, though. Like, we prayed for God to forgive us. So we go home and he tells my mom, but he tells her a very much less story than what actually happened. And he basically makes it kind of sound like he kind of propositioned me, but I said no. It's weird. So, of course, my mom was completely broken. If you think about this, my mom, I was 12 years old. My mom's only 15 years older than me. So at this time, my mom's only 27 years old. She's still quite young and she's hearing this. And so, we're actively involved in church still. And it's just crazy. So most of you have heard this part of my story, but my mom just didn't know what to do. She came and talked to me. I didn't know what all he had said to her, but she just was, asking me a few questions. I really can't remember. I just remember all I could think of was that prayer, forgive us for what we did wrong. And so I just kind of froze and I didn't say very much about it because I felt like I had done something wrong, because there were parts of what he did that I froze. And ignored. So weird. So anyway, I just didn't say very much. I didn't tell her that he had prayed that prayer, anything like that. She kind of mentioned, well, maybe you want to go stay with your grandma for a little while, because I loved my grandparents so much. And when I was like, oh, I would like that, then it was kind of like, well, no, because there's no telling what my papa would have done. So she was just really confused on what to do. So she ended up going to our pastor at the time. Like, this is an emergency. I have to come talk to you. And she went to the pastor, and many of you have heard this part of my story, but when she went to the pastor, what he said was, well, he was an only child and he never had any brothers or sisters. He's probably was just a little curious because Londa is starting to go through puberty, and God hates divorce. He said he was sorry. I mean, he admitted it. He confessed. So, go home and love him and pray for him and, forgive him. It's really interesting when these kind of things happen, because there was no advice for me. Nobody had any advice for me. And I don't blame my mom for this, because she didn't know what to do, or, she was in just as a devastating situation as I was, just in a different way. But at that time in history, it was kind of up to the victim to just try to stay away from that, whoever had done that, and not let it happen again. Like me as a 12-year-old could stop anything from happening again. Well, I am very fortunate, because I think because of the fact that I did tell, it caused him to back off from what his plans were. I'm sure what his plans were for me. There were times that I caught him doing some things, like, honestly, it's so disgusting, looking under my bathroom door, looking in my bedroom window, some things like that. And then he would actually come in my bed, because I always told. So he would come in my bedroom and say, you're going to have to quit making these things up because you're making your mom sick. So you can probably tell what a mental and physical toll this was taking on our whole family. And in the meantime, he was, drinking more often. Whenever he would come home late at night, like, you would just know he's going to come home. He's going to beat my mom up. Like, what do I do? Just hide in my bedroom? Do I go in there and try to help? Like, what do I do? So time was just going on, and this is what it was like. Well, my biological father moved from Colorado to Odessa, Texas, which is the town that we were living in. So, and of course, I didn't tell him any of these this stuff that was going on. And everybody thought of my stepdad as he's a great father. Like, he may have some faults, but he's a great dad. So it was just such a confusing situation, y'all, because he was like, aside from this other stuff, he was a really good dad. Like, he liked to take me and my brother fishing, and just, it's so confusing. And so I started getting close with my dad and stepmom, and I had a half sister and a stepsister. And during this time, my stepmom had a little baby, and his name was Lonnie. And, that was special to me because my name's Londa. And I loved my little brother. And it was really fun for me because that really connected me with that part of my family in a new way, because I got to be around him from the time he was a baby, and I loved going over there. I loved playing with him. He was just the cutest little thing. I just adored him. And so, I was getting closer to them. It still was rather strange because, like, I knew that was my dad. I knew that that was my family, but they didn't feel like my family to me. It's just, I had, you guys, so many crazy thoughts in my head during this time. But let me tell you, one thing that saved me is that I always, 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 always stayed in love with Jesus. I loved him more than anything. And I always believed him. I always believed he wanted the best for me. I always believed there was hope for us. And so that's what kept me going. School kept me going. My grandparents kept me going. My new little brother, Lonnie, my half brother with my mom and stepdad, like, those are the things that kept me going. I was in band in school, and all of those things were just like, they kept me going. And I was really good at looking happy, looking like just a normal teenage girl. So right before my freshman year in high school, my parents decided we were going to move out of state to Ruidoso, New Mexico. And, that meant that I had finally gone to the same school a couple of years in a row. I had really good friends. So it was just another thing that was going to be very traumatic, was for me to move. So it was just so much, you guys. And so then I went to see my grandmother. I always went and stayed a few days with her and my papa in the summer. And I was there, and it was the night that my mom had actually come there to pick me up, to bring me home. And we were going to be there the weekend and then go home. And we got a phone call, and it was my dad. And back then, none of us had any money. Nobody made long distance phone calls, but they just said, your dad's on the phone. So I got on the phone, not thinking something was wrong, just thinking it was weird that he was calling me at my grandma's house. And as soon as I answered the phone, my dad said, Lonnie got ran over. And when he said that, it was like the whole world stopped. And I said, is he okay? And my dad said, no, he's not okay. And I was like, is he alive? And he said, no, he's not alive. And then I just started weeping, and just saying, how, and no. And my dad just started to kind of stammer and cry. And he started to say, I didn't know he was behind the car. I didn't know. I thought he had gone inside. I didn't know he was behind the car. And my dad had accidentally backed over my sweet little Lonnie brother in the driveway, and Lonnie died. So we went back to Odessa, and I went through that whole process with my my dad, my stepmom. We went and picked out a casket. We spent 2 days at the funeral home with my precious little brother, who just looked like so beautiful. He just looked like he was laying there sleeping. You would have never known what that what he had gone through. And it was so gut wrenching and devastating. I don't even know how to explain that time. You have to imagine I was moving away. So I had really lost my stepdad who raised me. I mean, the moment that my stepdad made the decision to do what he did to me that day, I lost him as a father. I was getting to know my biological father and loving my little brother and having those sweet things. And then that happened. And as it would for any family, the grief was just overwhelming for years. And within a couple of weeks of my little brother passing away, I moved out of state. And so here we were. I was going to a brand new school again, all the things. And one thing that my stepdad had always done is keep a job, take care of us financially. We didn't have much, but he did, have stable jobs and stuff like that. And we moved to Ruidoso, New Mexico, and he just worked very little while we were there. We didn't have money. I mean, my mom started cleaning some houses, and most of the time that I was in high school, I didn't have lunch money. I didn't usually have breakfast. Back then, it was like a really big deal, like the free lunch program. Like, people just didn't do that. It was embarrassing, and people didn't do that. So most days I didn't eat until supper time, and then was living in just some of the most horrible circumstances. My stepdad got drunk one night, and my brother was laying on a bed. We were staying in a cabin until our house was ready. And my stepdad walked over to where my brother was laying and started to undo his pants. And my mom was like, "What are you doing?" And he was literally going to relieve himself on my brother's head. I'll just say it, he was going to pee on my brother's head. And my mom was going, "What are you doing?" So we woke my brother up. We went and hid in a room and locked the door until the next morning, when he woke up and was passed out in a chair and had urinated all over himself. And those kind of things just started becoming regular things. We went from him and my mom being in love with Jesus, and all these amazing things happened. And then this started. And then all of their friends that we had gone to church with and been through all this awesome stuff with, they started to backslide. And these people that used to have prayer meetings and do these awesome things, and where life was just so much better, they all started drinking together and partying together and doing just ridiculous things. And it was awful. It was like a nightmare to me. I began to have what I know now is anxiety attacks, but I didn't know what it was back then. And I would just be like, I can't catch my breath. Like when I had to babysit everybody's kids while all the adults were out at the bars. And when they came in, and my parents came to pick me up to take me home and take me and my brother home, and I knew they had been drinking, I had a full-on panic attack, not realizing I was having a panic attack. Nobody knew what that was. I was basically hyperventilating because it was icy outside. They had been drinking, and I had to ride in the car with them. Hi, for those of you that are greeting me. It's so good to see you on here. Better Joni and Peter and all you sweet people. I'm so thankful for all of you. And God is really moving. He's really doing something here. So as time went on, when I was 17 years old, my mom finally got to the point where it was just, she couldn't take it anymore. Not one more day. And he had denied, most things that he had actually been doing. And right before he left, my mom said, before you leave, I want to ask you one more time. And if you want any kind of redemption from everything we've gone through, you'll tell me the truth. Did you do those things? And he literally said, yes, I did every one of them and more. So it was very kind of cathartic, I would say, a little bit healing that he admitted to what he had done. And he left, and I really thought, yes, he's gone. Now mom's going to get just right with God. We're all going to start going to church together. And life is going to be so much better. Well, what happened is my mom was still so hurt from what had happened in the church, so devastated from what my stepdad had done, so devastated from them backsliding, that she did not, even though she loved the Lord, she knew the Lord, she didn't turn her back on the Lord, she just couldn't find her way back yet. And I couldn't do it by myself. I loved Jesus. I still went to youth group some. I was in and out. Like most weekends, I was home. I wasn't a partier. I wasn't like none of those things. I just was destroyed. My spirit was broken. And my mom's spirit was broken. And my little brother's spirit was broken. And we were afraid that my stepdad would show up and harm us. And it was just all so confusing. So confusing. My mom had to start working 2 and 3 jobs at a time. She worked so hard. I mean, I'm so appreciative. But in her having to work like that, I was really left taking care of my brother a lot. And the other day I talked to my brother, and he said, that I helped raise him and that he's still so grateful to me. So a lot of my time was taken up doing that. And, that kept me out of trouble a lot. So it's not all bad, but it was just a bad season. And, we had our church, but it's kind of like everybody just, I don't know why I don't know if it's still like this in church. Haven't been, I know 13 and a half years ago, when I went through a divorce, it was still like this. It was just kind of like I went from having all these friends to having nobody. And that's how it was for my mom. Like, she got a divorce and was working 3 jobs and 2 jobs at a time. And it's like the church just abandoned us in so many ways. I mean, you guys, when I say we were poor, like we were poor, we actually laugh about some of it, because like one time, all we had in the house to eat was peanut butter. And when I say all we had, that's all we had. Well, our car was broken down, our phone wasn't working, and our pipes froze. We lived in a mobile home and our pipes froze. So we didn't even have any water. And my mom climbed under the house, because she went and borrowed a phone and called someone and called the church and said, what do I do? Well, somebody at the church told my mom how to fix the pipes, which was get under the house in about a 3 feet of snow. We lived up in the mountains of New Mexico, and get up under a trailer house and blow dry the pipes and then tape them up with electrical tape so they wouldn't freeze again. So my mom spent the whole day doing this. Oh, and we were also out of butane, so we didn't have any heat. And half of our house didn't have electricity. My mom will confirm all of this. This is really how it was. So me and my brother were all bundled up in the house. My brother had on one of those bright orange hunter hats with fur, had it flipped up. And we were just like hungry and cold. My mom walks in the house. Well, what had happened was she warmed up the pipes too soon, and the pipes cracked from one end all the way down the other. And we were hungry, so we were all sitting there eating spoonfuls of peanut butter and nothing to drink. Have you ever done that? It was literally like, because our tongue would stick to the roof of our mouth. And we sat there and started looking at each other, and we literally just died laughing. Sometimes you have to laugh instead of crying. We ended up walking to someone's house that we knew. So yes, we literally walked up the hill in the snow, and we got to their house, and they took us in for a couple of days. We had ramen soup for supper. And let me tell you, that was the best soup I've ever had. So don't knock ramen soup. That's just crazy, y'all. That's the kind of stuff that was going on. But I want to tell you something. I'm going to end this part of the story right here, but I want to tell you something. We still loved Jesus. And even though it was hard and things were hard during that time and we were poor, we were free. Like we were free. We weren't afraid that someone was going to come home and tear up the house and beat up my mom and spank me or my brother, essay me. Like we were free. And we did crazy things during that season. Like when my mom was home one night, we started singing the song Johnny Be Good. Do y'all know that song? I don't know. Some of you will be old enough on here to know that song. We stood on the coffee table with our socks on, slipping around all over the coffee table, singing that song. Like we were just free. And it felt so good to not be scared. Like just to not be scared. And even though things were hard, and eventually my mom was able to start going back to church again, and we started going back to church together, and God started bringing healing. There's a whole other part of this story that's coming, and it gets better. But I want to tell you what happened to me is I would give enough of myself to the Lord to be safe and to feel safe. But I couldn't give him everything anymore. Like when I got saved, I truly got saved and was so immersed in Jesus. And I believed so much. I would pray and God would hear me and answer these prayers. And it was incredible. And I didn't believe anymore that he cared enough about me to answer my prayers, or that I wasn't important enough, or it's hard to explain what happened to me, but a lot of my spirit was crushed. And so I just loved the Lord, but I was afraid to love him all the way like I had. I was afraid to give him everything. I was, so I would hold back part of myself on purpose to not be disappointed, because if I didn't give him everything, and then if something bad happened, I wouldn't think it's because he wasn't hearing me. When it comes down to it, I was ashamed, and I didn't believe in the goodness of God like I did when I was a little girl. So I'm going to stop my story right there, and I'm hoping to pick it back up tomorrow, because I really want to get through this before my mom and I get on here so that she can share her part of this testimony, because don't you know that it is an amazing thing that through all of this, my mom and I have loved each other. She's always asked for forgiveness when she thinks of anything that went on, and I forgive her. And we are close. We're best friends. And I'm so grateful that the devil was not able to steal that from us, right? He tried real hard. And you know why? Because we were raised up for such a time as this. I think that whenever you look at me, you can see that Jesus has set me free, that I am full of the joy of the Lord. I have a good life, and I'm so, so, so grateful. And if you are on here and you have had disappointments, maybe not just like the ones I'm talking about, but other disappointments. Maybe you've lost a child. Maybe you've lost a sibling. Maybe you have been essayed by someone you trusted. Maybe you've been groomed. Maybe you have been disappointed in the leadership of your church. Maybe you have been hurt at church. Maybe you are doing everything you can right now just to get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other. And I want you to know that even when it feels like you can't hold on to Jesus, Jesus is holding on to you. And I am living proof of that. His word says that he will never leave us and he will never forsake us. And I can promise you that through everything, every trial, every huge thing I've ever gone through, he has never left me and he has never, ever forsaken me. In his presence, there is nothing that compares to the presence of God. Can you feel his presence right now? Can you feel his presence? Can you see his glory on my face? Let that glory reflect on you. There's nothing like it. There's nothing worth. There is no pain too big that the Lord can't overcome and heal your broken heart. He can heal your broken heart. He can heal your broken spirit. He can heal your woundedness, and he wants to. And he can do it just like that. I love the Lord so much. I am so grateful that there are those of you who are listening. I want to pray with you. I want to pray over you. Please let me know if the Lord is touching you through these conversations. He is so good. There's so much more. I'm going to have Tina on again. She hasn't been feeling well. So you guys pray for my friend Tina. She shared her story about her son passing away and being in an abusive relationship and all of that. And, we need a part 2 of her story. So pray for God to touch her body. And pray for my mom as she gets ready to share her testimony on here. And thank you all for watching. I'm going to pray for you right now. If you've never asked Jesus into your heart and you want to know him and you want him to heal you and you want him to come into your heart and change your life and be your best friend, pray this prayer with me. If you have known the Lord and you've gone through any of those things that I talked about, then pray with me. Let me get a little drink. Lord, we love you so much. If you are praying this prayer to be saved, just join in praying with me. And Father, I thank you for sending your son to die for me. I thank you that Jesus came to save me and to heal me. And I thank you that I have found this podcast today so that I can meet you, Lord. I pray that you forgive me of all of my sins. I repent before you. I ask you to come into my heart, be my Savior, my Lord, and my very best friend. Father, I pray right now for anyone who's listening that has been through any of the things that I've discussed this afternoon, that they need you, they need healing, they need to be restored, they need a touch from you, Lord. I ask you to touch them right now in the name of Jesus, that they would feel your presence right where they're at, and that you would change their lives and make them whole. And I thank you for everything you're doing, God. You are a great God, and we are honored to be alive during this season, knowing that you're coming soon, Jesus. and we look forward to it. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Thank all of you for watching. I see different ones of you. I'm just blessed. I feel like I'm making friends through this, and so thankful for all my new friendships. Please like and subscribe and share if you don't mind. I have a goal of reaching 1,000 viewers right now, not for the numbers, but I want to reach people. People need the Lord, and I want to be part of what God's doing in this day and time. Thank you again so much for watching. I pray that all of you have a blessed day, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, I'm here all day. Don't give up.